right. Hello and welcome to the first episode of From the Pitch to the Pros. This is a little segment we're bringing to you guys from BPTV. We're really excited to dive in today. My name is Ellie, and I'm here with two of our Beyond Pulse team members, Kaelon Fox and Sophia Braun. Now, Kaelon and Sophia do a little bit more in their day-to-day than just work for Beyond Pulse. They are both professional soccer players. We'll continue to meet on this series and talk really candidly with Kaelon and Sophia about their journeys and their insights as professionals, but also just as players who have a love for the game. So today's episode, we're going to talk about the role of positive parenting in youth sports and beyond. To start, I'd love to talk a little bit about you two and have you introduce yourselves. So I'm going to start with Kaelon. Kaelon, can you just briefly introduce yourself and tell us about your soccer career so far?
Yes, I would happy. Yeah. So I started at the age of 4, which is pretty young. I am 27 now. So I've been playing soccer since, I can remember. I started out in the youth, the recreational, the orange slices at halftime, grapes, parents on the sidelines, you know how it is. And then I progressed to competitive. And then I went to the University of Kentucky to play Division I soccer from 2013 to 2016. I took my redshirt year at a small school in Pennsylvania where I studied and received my MBA. And then that's when I made the jump to the pros in 2019. I went to Iceland for my first year as a professional soccer player. I spent 2 years there, so 19 and 20 season. And then I made the jump back to America. I played in Arizona in USL League One for FC Tucson for 2021 and 2022. And now I find myself back home. I'm from Louisville, but as I said, I went to school in Lexington and I'm wearing my Lexington colors, but I play for Lexington Sporting Club, who is their first year in USL League One. So that's where I am now.
Amazing. Love it. Cool. Sophia, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sophia. Similar to Kaelon, although he has me beat, I think I started at 6. Still pretty young, but I also started in just a fun environment. I think I played for the Hot Chili Kickers. So that's where I got my start. And then I played in a more competitive league in high school. And then I went to college at Gonzaga from 2018 to just this past year. This is my first season playing professionally, which is really exciting. And I'm happy to be here. And then in college, I also got the opportunity to start playing with the national team with Team Argentina. So that's been fun as well. That's kind of me.
Yeah, I love it. That's perfect, you guys. Thanks so much for that. So as you heard me say, as we talked about, today's episode is focused on positive parenting and generally the role of parents in youth soccer. So I want to ask you both to reflect on your experiences as a youth soccer player and talk a little bit about the role of your parents and maybe what role they had in introducing you to the game, and kind of how involved they were in your early development. Either one of you, whoever feels most compelled to jump in.
Kick us off.
Yeah.
Okay. My parents definitely had a big impact on my youth development with soccer. They were the ones that got me started. They kind of put me in every sport, I think. But they were super supportive from day one and just super invested in soccer, but not only making sure I was playing, but I was having fun. And that was really important to me. They came to like every game, which was awesome and super supportive. Obviously, they drove me there until I could drive myself, which was helpful. But yeah, they were awesome. They were super, super supportive and just made me love the game that much more. And I'm very thankful for that.
Nice. What about you?
Yeah, for me, kind of the same. I hope my parents aren't watching this, but they are not the most athletic bunch. So I didn't get the athleticism from my parents, but I did get the love of sports and the love of the game. My brother was the one that introduced me to soccer. He's about 10 years older than me. So he was in high school by this time. I started kicking the ball around in the backyard with him, going to his games, watching, enjoying the sport. So that's kind of where I fell in love with soccer. But like Sophia said, my parents were always bringing me to games. They would always have the orange slices, the grapes at halftime when I was growing up. So that was really nice. As I progressed to high school, again, they were always there, always supportive. Even if it was a good game or a bad game, my mom would always, be there at the fence saying, "Good job, Kaelon," one of those, even though she has kind of no idea what's going on. But still, they're there, and that's really what counts. And then, I went off to college. I was only an hour away from home, so they could still come to the games. And then they came over to Iceland while I was there. So that was awesome. It was my brother, his wife, and my parents came to Tucson, they come to the games at Lexington. So yeah, they've been supportive throughout, since I was 4 years old to where I am now. So I can't be any more appreciative of them.
That's great. That's great. Sophia, I'm curious, do either of your parents have like a strong athletic background or like a strong like knowledge base about the game of soccer?
And not really. Kind of similar with Kaelin. They both like sports growing up, and my mom's from Argentina, so soccer is obviously a big deal down there. So I think she always grew up around it and loved the game. I mean, everyone there does, which is really exciting. So I have that from my mom, and she played sports herself, and so did my dad, but neither of them really played soccer. So their knowledge wasn't super deep either, but I mean, they were trying their best. They coached my little brother and sister in their youth team when they grew up. So they definitely tried.
Right. Of course. I know I felt like with friends growing up, I'd always feel like there was a unique intensity with parents who played the sport in college and had kids who were playing on the team. It always felt like, because they can see things that, other parents who maybe didn't play at a higher level can't see. So I always felt that pressure like adjacently. I was like, woof, that's tough having a parent who's played it, and kind of experiencing that type of pressure. It kind of feeds into my next question, which is, I guess, what was your parents' presence like at your games? Like, did you feel like a certain like they affected your performance or your motivation in a specific way? Yeah, if you could just talk me through what that felt like.
I could go. I think my parents were always really awesome at my games. They were super supportive, and it didn't matter if we won or we lost, or I played my best game ever or my worst game ever. I think they were happy to be there, which was something that I was really grateful for and that I really looked forward to. I think definitely as I got older, I think more of the pressure I put almost on myself rather than them, just because they had put so many like resources and time and money into me being able to play the game that I love, that I wanted to be my best, like to show them that it mattered and that I was thankful for that. But I don't think it was ever really them being like, you need to be better and we want you to be the best soccer player ever. I never really felt that, which was nice. And I was super grateful for that.
That's nice. That's great. What about you, Kaelin?
Yeah, my parents are the same. I think at times they are very competitive. So I would hear them from the sidelines, either yelling at the ref or, telling me to run harder. So there are times when they got on me, but in terms of just seeing them on the sidelines and then being there and there to greet me after the game, that's always something that I've been really grateful for. I've had to coach this past year, 06 boys, so high school age. So I have games with the pro team on the Saturdays and I'm traveling on the Sundays. And I never really knew how much time it took, energy. I mean, when, Sophia's talking about money, talking about resources my parents, worked from Monday to Friday and they were taking me to games on Saturdays and Sundays and in the car, in the hotels, stuff like that. So when you're that age, you don't realize how much time, how much energy they're giving up out of their, free weekends to spend with you and enjoy watching the sport that you love playing with your friends. So to that, I would say for all the parents that are out there, we thank you a lot. There's a lot that you guys put into this, and as players, as someone who played from 4 until 27, my parents are still there, and I just wanted to take that moment to say thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of work that goes into it. My next question is still feeding off of this. How do you think that plays into the psychology of a player once they are at an age where they do recognize that? Like, let's say like early teens, when you're kind of going into high school, where you can look up and you can be like, okay, yeah, my parents are spending a lot of time driving me around. They are taking me to games, spending a lot of money and traveling across the country, all the things. What advice would you give to a player who maybe might be feeling the weight of that pressure, or might be bearing, that weight, or maybe feeling a little bit of guilt? Like, because there are some unique pressures that come from understanding that.
Sophia.
That's a tough one. I think there's always going to be like a certain amount of weight and pressure that is going to come with being an athlete. But I think a lot of us athletes really enjoy that and almost like thrive off that pressure. I know myself, I really like it, and it kind of motivates me a little bit. Obviously, I don't want my parents out here telling me I need to do better and yelling at me and all that. But I do like having a little bit of that knowledge that almost like there's more skin in the game. And so it kind of pushes me a little farther. But I mean, it is a really cool age when you start to realize that and know that what's going into it. Because I think a lot of the times when I was growing up, I mean, I took a lot of that for advantage and I didn't really realize that. So I was grateful when I kind of saw all that my parents had done for me and kind of realized it. And it definitely changed my perspective a little bit, and made me want to push myself to be even better. So I would say if you are feeling that pressure or that weight, just try to spin it and use it as something to motivate you and push you to move forward.
Nice.
Yeah, really, really well said. I think that was probably around high school for me when I started driving to games where I had to start paying for gas. If I was in a hotel overnight, it was just me, and not having your parents there to, go out for a meal or to give you the team talk before you step onto the field, out of the car, going for warm up. So it's in those moments where you're not alone, but you're just kind of by yourself, and then obviously with your teammates. But when your parents aren't around, it's one of those where you don't realize what you have till it's either not there or gone. So high school was pretty much the age for me in terms of how to deal with the pressure. I think at the end of the day, it's a sport, it's a game. You put a lot of energy and a lot of time into it, but it is just a game. The most important thing is just going out there and having fun and enjoying the time with your friends, and then having, again, your parents on the sidelines to greet you after the game is just an added bonus.
Right. Totally. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. And, now you guys play professionally, you do work. So you are juggling a couple things. But when we think about youth players, I think sometimes forget that they are students, right? Like they're all student athletes in a way. So how did your parents, if they did, support you when you were trying to maintain a balance between school and soccer, and then also just like social, right? Like your social life, which is very important as a child, social and emotional learning. How did your parents support you in balancing these areas of your life?
I think my parents did a really good job of almost keeping me in check sometimes, especially I think in high school when I was looking at recruiting and trying to figure out what I wanted to do and where I wanted to play. I think they did a really good job of constantly reminding me, like, okay, without soccer, like, what is this school going to look like? Are you still going to enjoy it? Is this a good academic school that has what you want? So I think that was really important for me because it was pretty easy for me to get wrapped up in soccer and only look at where I wanted to play soccer and kind of forget about the rest. So I'm very thankful for that. And they kind of always instilled in me that there's more than just soccer and life. Eventually, I'm going to lose that part of my life. And so they wanted me to be ready and to be able to tackle other things and find joy in other things. So I was thankful for that, for sure.
That's a really powerful perspective to give a young person, because you're right.
Yeah.
Get sucked in, especially if you are getting different offers and getting pulled in different directions. That's really great advice.
Yeah, for me, my parents weren't college athletes, so it was kind of the first for all of us, my mom, my dad, and myself included. We would spend probably like 4 to 6 hours before big showcases, just emailing college coaches and making sure the first names were right, the last names were right. If there was something about the college, making sure to put it in there. So it was a lot of time and energy. And I really relied on my dad because he has that experience with him being, a businessman and going through things like that already. It was the first time for me. We mapped out that I didn't want to leave anywhere or be anywhere other than 6 hours from home. So that way, if I wanted to drive home, get, some home cooked meals or laundry, I could still do that. We wanted to make sure the school had, X amount of people. So there was criteria that when I was emailing the coaches that I wanted to make sure that it was the right school for not only me, but as Sophia said, like if I get injured, if I'm not playing soccer, my parents wanted to make sure that I'm still happy at that school. Cause, soccer is a game that sooner or later we'll have to hang up the boots. Hopefully that's, 10 years down the road for me, not tomorrow, but at the end of the day, you have to rely on your education. And for me, I have my master's as well as my undergrad. So it's something that I can rely on after soccer, but just having my mom and dad to be there with me every step of the way throughout that recruiting process and into the student athlete life as well at Kentucky and St. Francis was really big.
Yeah, huge. So we've talked a lot about like academics, education, and like professional life and setting yourself up to make sure that, yeah, soccer, when it ends long, far from away from now, that you'll have other things there. I think outside of even just professional life, like, did you feel like you were encouraged to explore other hobbies as a kid or other interests, or maybe you didn't have any? I understand too, there are some younger kids, some youth athletes who are like, this is my sport, this is the sport I want to play, and this is what but did you have anything else, or were you encouraged to expand your interests during those formative years beyond soccer?
Yeah, I think I had a lot of interest, especially in sports, just in general. I grew up playing a lot of different sports, which I was super thankful for. I was always a little more drawn to soccer, I think. But I mean, I played basketball for a long time as well. And I think it was really valuable being able to play another sport and kind of have an outlet that wasn't just solely soccer. So I was really thankful for that. And then socially, I think honestly, a lot of my social life revolved around soccer, but I was really thankful for that. I mean, socially, I think is a big part of why I fell in love with soccer. I just love being part of a team sport. And my best friends were my teammates, like probably since I was 8 years old to still to this day. Like I still talk to my teammates that I grew up playing with. And I'm super thankful for that. And my parents were super supportive in everything I wanted to do. I think even in elementary school, I was like super into theater and they supported that as well. So there was definitely a lot of different outlets that I was thankful to get to explore and just to like see what I loved. And I think that's a big reason why I'm still playing today, is because I had so many options and really got to stick with what I truly loved.
Yeah. Incredible.
Sports has always been a part of my life. Growing up, I did golf, I did tennis, I did lacrosse. I didn't really grow into my body until high school. So I grew really tall, but I didn't gain a lot of weight. So I was a string bean. So when I went into the physical sports like lacrosse and football, I probably only played those for like a year just because of injury. So I tended to stay towards golf and tennis. And then of course, the team sport that I played the most was soccer. That goes back to my brother, just getting me in that, and also my parents making sure that I stayed with it. But yeah, that was the sports. In terms of social, I think I'm with Sophia. A lot of my friends are just from various teams that I've played on throughout the years. I think I stayed out of trouble in the grade school and the high school years because of soccer, because I was always on the road in different states with the team. But yeah, that was me in a nutshell growing up.
Nice. So soccer careers, I think, especially if you know from a young age that you are really invested and you spend, some kids by the time they're 14, like you two, they've already put in like 5 or 6 years of work. So over the span of a young athlete's soccer career, even if they don't go on to play, it's like they are going to inevitably experience high highs and low lows. How did your parents help you, if they did, in those low points? Like, can you think of a moment where you ever were like, I don't know if I can do this, I can't do this? And if so, where did your parents step in and help guide you?
I think for me, I definitely went through a lot of lows, and my parents were always there for me and very supportive in those times, which was awesome. Specifically, I know the whole recruiting process was really difficult for me, kind of similar to Kaelon. I didn't grow until I was in high school as well. So I was pretty small and I wasn't the most athletic kid. I was never the fastest or the strongest, but I just really love soccer and I love the game. And so for girls, especially, recruiting happened so early in high school. So I think a low for me was I kind of watched all my teammates get committed to different schools. And I was like, I don't even know if I can play. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I can do this. And my parents supported me through that for a while, which was helpful. But I know something that honestly, like, probably made the biggest impact on me was that they were like, it's okay if you don't want to do this. Like, you don't have to keep trying. Like, if you want to stop, like, you can. Like, we support you. And I was like, no, I don't want to. Like, and so I think that really kind of helped me be like, no, like, screw that. Like, I want to play soccer. And so that kind of helped push me harder, and just know it did take off some of the pressure as well of like, oh, I have to find a school right now. And like, okay, like, it's going to be okay if I don't play, but I really do want to. And I do want to keep pushing because this is what I want, not what my parents want or what anybody else wants.
Wow, that's huge. I think like there is a point in your career where you do have to individuate, right? Where you have to kind of make a clear line that this is not just my parents' dream, this is my dream. And the fact that your parents actually said, do you want this? If you don't, that's okay, I think is an incredible offering that a lot of parents don't always give their kid, or forget to, or yeah, I think it's just an incredible reflection point and a kind of a gift to give a child, to give a youth athlete who maybe is unsure if it's their dream or their parents' dream,
Yeah.
Yeah. Kaelon, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think there's always, highs in sport, whether it's a win on the weekend or you're lifting a state championship title for your high school. And then there's also the lows, right? So for me, there were two kind of low points in my high school, one in my high school and one in my college. I barely made the freshman team at my high school, like barely. I almost got cut. I was the last man in every game to get subbed in. But my parents would always, of course, be there at the fence to say how good of a job I did, et cetera. But the key there, that there was just no pressure, right? There was times in the car I was like, hey, mom, hey, dad, like, I'm just not enjoying it. I love the guys on the team. I love the locker room. I love the laughs. I love the sport, but I'm not playing. Like, I don't know, like, what I can do or how I can, perform better. And they said, listen, if you want to quit, that's fine. There's no pressure. Just give your best. And at the end of the day, we'll support you with whatever decision you make. So 3 years later, I stuck with it and I held up a state trophy at the end. I was the player of the year for the state of Kentucky. I made the first team. I was All-American. So it's times like that I reflect and say, hey, like, I could have quit. I could have given up, but I enjoyed the locker room. I enjoyed the sport. So I just kept going. And sooner or later, it may not be a week, it may not be a day, but a few years down the road, you'll thank yourself for not quitting. But then as well, going back to the parents, like, just having no pressure also benefited me the most as well there. In college, I broke my collarbone 2 weeks before preseason started. So of course you're watching your teammates practice, day in and day out while you're on the sidelines. And there were numerous phone calls back to my parents like, hey, it's one of those where, before I committed to Kentucky, am I going to be happy there if I'm injured and I can't play soccer? Is the university going to make me happy? And I'm really happy that I listened to my parents when I was going through that process, because I was happy at Kentucky. I could pop home and it was an hour down the road. I can go for dinner. I can do laundry. I could spend time with my parents to help me get me, through those tough times. And then, 6 or 7 weeks later, I was healthy. I was back training with the team. And of course, the serotonin levels go up because you're back in the locker room, you're back with the guys, you're on the field. So those 2 points where I could have given up, but my parents really helped me get through those. And it was a no pressure environment. They were there for support. I think that's the key there.
Yeah, I even think the key word is no pressure environment. I think, there is like healthy pushing and like positive pushing with parents, but no, I think that both of you sound like you've had experiences with parents who respect you as individuals, right? Who can make their own decisions and who they trust will make the right decision for themselves. So yeah, I think that's a big lesson for any, maybe parent of a youth athlete listening in on this is, create a safe environment and keep the communication channels open. So this next one that's kind of is similar, an extension of what we're talking about of, being a player and having parental guidance versus complete independence, right? So if you guys reflect on your careers, how has the role of your parents evolved? And are they still actively involved, or how involved are they now as you guys are professionals? And maybe just take a moment to like walk us through like the level of involvement and kind of when they just kind of like let go and kind of, let you operate independently.
I think I just kind of experienced that let go, which is crazy. But my parents were definitely very heavily involved from the start, which I was thankful for. I mean, obviously, like I said, they took me to every game. They poured lots of resources into me being able to do what I love. They definitely came to every game. They coached my brother and sister's little rec team as they grew up, which was fun to kind of be a part of. And they were involved. They came to probably every single game as I grew up in high school and club. And I definitely didn't take the easiest of approaches. I think in high school, before ECNL became a thing in Oregon, I was actually playing for the ECNL team in Seattle, Puyallup specifically, but which was a far drive from Portland. And so my parents, there was a couple other girls around my area that we would all carpool, but my parents, I mean, pretty much drove from Portland to Seattle like twice a month, which was huge. And they never missed a game, even when they were 4 hours away, which was really awesome and supportive. And then college, I went to Gonzaga, which was like a 5.5 hour drive. So a little farther than Kaelon, but still not super far, which was really nice. They definitely came to a few games, and they went to even some away games, which was special. And I always loved having them out, but even when they weren't there in person, I knew they were watching at home, and they would always call me after and talk about it. So I love that. And I knew my parents were always watching. And then I'm now in Mexico playing soccer. So I'm now the farthest I've been away and in a different country, which is a lot harder because my parents haven't been able to come to a game in person. But I mean, they're still watching all my games, and I know they get excited when games roll around to watch and to talk to me after. So, I mean, I would say they're still involved. I'm definitely a lot more independent now, which is fun in some sense, but I still love calling my parents after games.
Yeah, that's where to go.
Yeah.
No, I totally feel that. I love that.
Those are the best calls when your parents are watching on the TV and you score a goal or have an assist. Those phone calls are always the best.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, my parents are definitely still involved heavily. They were just here for a month. They went to 3 home games, and they traveled to Chattanooga for the away game on the way home. So they love it. They retired. Both of them retired after I graduated college. So they were full team go when I was in Iceland, when I was in Tucson, and now being in Lexington. So I think it's never going to stop as long as I keep playing, which is going to be awesome. Always seeing them. They'll text me, hey, I got so-and-so coming as well. I'll get them extra tickets. So it's kind of a fun family affair. They get to come watch me play. They'll invite some old friends from Louisville, from Lexington to come watch as well. So it's kind of like a family reunion for them, or a friends reunion, as well as watching me play, which is always great. So yeah, they're still heavily involved.
That's incredible. So I want to close out. We only have about like less than 10 minutes. So I want to close out by, offering up some advice for aspiring, young players and their parents, right? Because as we've kind of talked about today, it's sort of a team effort, right? Between player and parent. So based on your own experiences, what do you believe is the most important role that parents can play in supporting their athletes' sports aspirations? Like if you could boil it down to a few sentences, like what is the role that they should play in their child's experience?
I almost want to say like being like a fan, and I feel like that sounds kind of weird, but I think with a fan, I mean, it's just all about positivity and support and just like loving the game and being there for them in the highs and the lows. And I think that's what's most important. I know we've talked about it a lot, but just creating as low stakes and low pressure of an environment, I think is really important. I think for a lot of athletes, we put enough pressure on ourselves that we honestly don't need that added pressure from any parents, especially because, I mean, parents have such an important role with us, and any pressure from them is going to feel like 10 times the amount of pressure that it would from anyone else. So I think being a fan is really what would be most important for somebody that is looking to navigate that relationship.
Be a fan. I love it.
I would go back to the no pressure, like Sophia was saying. I think it's so important as athletes. You're getting ready for the game. You don't want to make the mistake. It's team sport, stuff like that. So having your parents just be there for you at the beginning of the game to help you out, whether it's breakfast, whether it's the parent talk in the car before you go for warm up or after the game, when you guys go get food, just being there for the highs and also the lows, the mistakes as well. So having a no pressure environment is really crucial at whatever age it is. From, when I started playing at 4 to not even knowing the game of soccer and how it worked to now as a professional, and just having that conversation after games or before games and just being like, hey, do your best, try your hardest. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah, that's great, you guys. I think I'm going to end there because that was a beautiful, beautiful ending. Great answers from both of you. I honestly want to interview your parents next because they sound like they sound like rock star models for positive parenting in soccer. So I really appreciate that. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for whoever's tuning in. Once again, this is Kaelon and Sophia. We're going to try to do this once or twice a month. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment or shoot an email linked in the description. Otherwise, that wraps up today's episode on positive parenting and sports. We'll catch you guys next time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.